Today, I'm answering 18 of your questions as a home bakery owner with a full-time job and zero experience in the industry while I create a cake chosen by all of you. So let's get right into it. I did a poll on Instagram and YouTube, and you guys voted that we create a citrus flavored cake. And for the design, we will be doing cake painting. For this cake, I'm thinking we do layers of Genoa sponge cake, cream cheese buttercream, and then sudachi curd as a filling, which is a grapefruit lined cointreau curd that I made in a previous short before, but I think that goes perfectly with our citrus theme while adding some additional interest as well. Our first question comes from Monica Zeph317, and she asked, what is your name and are you Korean? If you're new here, my name is Erica and I am 100% ABC, which stands for American Born Chinese. And I just turned 29 this year. Abby Blanket 4070 asks, I'd love to know what first got you into baking. I actually grew up watching Food Network on TV. I specifically remember in elementary school when there would be snow days, I would literally be at home alone watching episodes of 30-Minute Meals by Rachel Ray literally all day, from morning until my parents came home. So from a young age, I always loved the idea of cooking and watching others cook. I had literally watched so much Food Network that I never even tasted herbs like thyme and rosemary, but I could randomly say something that sounded kind of good just because I watched so much and understood the vibe of what types of herbs go together, even if I didn't know how they tasted. And I have an older sister who is 8 years older than me, so when I was in elementary school, she was in high school, and I remember we would always bake goodies for her to bring to high school for her friends. So she's really the one who introduced me into baking, and from there, baking just became my creative outlet. I started with baking recipes in our toaster oven, like cupcakes and French macarons, because of course our real oven was used for storing pots and pans, like a classic Asian household. And then in high school, we moved to a house that had 2 ovens, and that's when I started making more complex things like cream puffs and entremets just from watching YouTube videos, and from then on, it felt like the sky was the limit. The next question comes from Sarah Bates 6534. What methods did you use to improve your baking without formal culinary education? Here are 3 methods I used to improve my baking. The first thing that was a total game changer was buying a scale. I used to use cups and tablespoons, but I found that was actually really limiting because then it made it extremely hard to scale and adjust recipes. For example, if I make a cake once and I decide this is almost there, I just need to maybe up the sugar by 10%, that would be so hard to do if your measurement is just like 1 cup, like 1.1 cup. And so once I started using scales for my baking, I found that helped a lot with the recipe adjustment precision, but it also helped a lot with repeatability. For example, I have had recipes where I literally use the exact same number of eggs, but because the eggs really are slightly smaller, the recipe comes out completely differently because of the considerable lack of moisture in the batter. The second method I used to improve my baking was to challenge myself to bake new things. That's something I highly recommend because I feel like you do learn the most by baking a variety of different things. Some ideas of what to bake if you are just starting out would be, of course, cake, cookies, but also things like cream puffs, tempering chocolate and making bonbons, caramels, praline, pavlovas, basically anything under the sun that's interesting to you. I would definitely recommend trying to make it yourself. I feel like I learned so much from making a wide variety of things, and then those skills also apply to new things you bake as well. And my final tip is to iterate on your recipes. So if you fail, try again. But even when it turns out pretty well, always think about how you can improve it. For example, oftentimes I adjust the sugar and salt levels, adjusting the size, the hydration, making new variations. Having a habit of iterating on your recipes is really what's gonna help you grow more. Trying a new recipe, trying a variety of different recipes when you're making the same thing. That's really gonna help you take your baking to the next level because it teaches you to really own the recipes that you try and you make. All right, that is looking good. We'll go ahead and pop that into the pan. Do you have any resources to recommend? Books, YouTube, websites? The resource I love the most is definitely YouTube, so I would highly recommend that. What I love about YouTube is the fact that you can actually visually see all the steps of the recipe, and at the end of a lot of these recipes, they show you the texture of the final bake. For example, when they cut into the slice of cake, you can actually tell the firmness of the frosting when they're cutting into the cake at the end, or when they're breaking apart a cookie or a scone. I really use that to my advantage when picking recipes on YouTube. I feel like like that also does help ensure a higher likelihood that the recipe is going to be successful at the end. Because I find in the past, if you follow a written recipe on a website that only has the final product photo, a lot of times the bake just doesn't turn out like that. And it's really hard to tell why if there's just no pictures of any of the intermediate steps. So yeah, YouTube, I highly recommend. Honey Sprout Baked Goods asks, how long have you been pursuing baking as a small business? I officially had my first bake sale in April of 2024, so it's been around 2 years since I started. And do you plan on doing a pop-up in Philly someday? If I have the chance, I would love to do a pop-up in Philly someday. Kay Silvstra Art asks, what did you study in college and what inspired you to start a home bakery side hustle? I just love playing the guessing game, so I'll give you 5 seconds to guess what my major was in college. One hint I will give you is that it has absolutely nothing to do with anything home bakery related. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My major in college was computer science. So yeah, not really creative at all. But on the bright side, it is very problem solving oriented, so that may have helped a little bit. Let me know down below if you got it right. To be honest, since I was little, I always dreamed of opening a bakery. I think since middle school specifically, that's when I started to bake a lot more, and I think it really did become a conscious dream to one day open a bakery. But I will say, although I knew I wanted to open a bakery one day, I never had an actual plan of what point of my life I was actually going to open a bakery. Really, the only thing I had thought of up to that point was that I wanted to open it, at least someday before I die, maybe after I retire. And then during the pandemic, I daydreamed about it so much that I decided that I didn't want to wait anymore, and starting a home bakery would be the perfect low-risk step to start actually making progress towards opening a bakery someday. Do you have any tips for staying consistent with your home bakery while working a full-time job? I feel like this applies to really having any side hustle on the side of your full-time job. It's basically just a game of identifying your top priority and working towards that as you go. At any given point, you need to identify what is your top priority that you're working towards that moves you towards your larger goal, and then constantly audit the tasks you have planned and focus on doing the 20% that will get you 80% of the way. For example, a goal that I had last year was to do as many markets as I could in 3 months. So that meant I prioritized tasks that were required to make those markets happen over all other tasks. That includes video editing, taking on custom orders, basically anything else that I wanted to do just had to be lower priority, because I found the reality is there's just not enough time to do everything. So the best that you can really do is just pick a direction that you want to go in, and then every single day take a step in that direction. And honestly, that is enough. Sunshine Bakery SG asks, what is it like to juggle a full-time job and a huge side hustle? To be completely honest, it is both physically and mentally hard, maybe a lot of the time. Kind of feels like when you're on a treadmill and each time you take a step, you're barely catching yourself as you move forwards. That is kind of how it feels like, because there's definitely enough work between having a full-time job, making content, and a home bakery. Those could definitely be 3 full-time jobs in itself. But even so, I have personally found it to be very rewarding and definitely worth it. Even before I opened a home bakery, I was already doing this kind of thing anyways. I just love planning events and planning really big bakes. For example, for the holidays, I would make assorted cookie boxes just by myself, even without having a home bakery or making content or anything. I just love to plan those kinds of big projects anyways. So I have really enjoyed that. Opening the home bakery has helped me to kind of focus my energy in one direction and give me the possibility to grow my hobby into something bigger. All right, it is now another day and time to finish decorating our cake because I couldn't find my palette knives, so I had to go ahead and order some more. And this is the inspo for the artwork on the cake. Jessica Goulart 6178 asks, how do you decide pricing for the pastries you sell? So what I usually do, which is something that I learned by watching other YouTube videos, is to aim for a price that is 15 to 30% COGS, which just means that the cost to make that product is 15 to 30% of the final price that you're selling selling it for. And as a home bakery, how I calculate my cost of goods sold is based on the cost of making the largest batch possible in my home kitchen for that item. For example, even if I only get an order for 3 cookies, right? The price I set is actually based on the maximum batch of those cookies that I can make. So for example, maybe that's the batch of 30 cookies that I can fit in my stand mixer and bake in my oven all at once. I do go into a little bit more depth on how I calculate COGS and how I price my goods. So if you're interested, I'll put a link to that video either here or here so you can check it out. Did you take any culinary classes at all, or are you self-taught? I am self-taught. I like to say that I basically went to YouTube University because I pretty much learned everything that I know from YouTube. I have been watching baking YouTubes, I think honestly since middle school. Some YouTube channels that I have especially learned a lot from are like Cupcake Gemma, how to cook that. There are a bunch of Korean and Japanese baking channels that I love and I've made so many things from. I'm the kind of person that's subscribed to I think literally like 900 channels because I really don't watch TV shows and stuff. YouTube is basically my TV where I like to learn everything. The only kind of class that I've ever taken, it was a Christina Tosi month-long online baking class that my friend gifted me where she teaches you some of the milk bar recipes, and I think the most helpful thing that I learned from that was some tips on how to do the recipe development. But that was like only 3 years ago. That's also where I learned her technique to make layer cakes, which I still use to this day. But the classes were online and completely pre-recorded, so I would personally say like 99 or 98% of my baking experience today does not come from that class, so that's why I wouldn't count it as an official culinary class that I've done. I also have not taken any painting classes before, so every time I do this kind of thing, it's a gamble to see how it turns out. What are some kitchen appliances you recommend? Here are 3 not super obvious recommendations. My first recommendation would be a high precision scale. This is one I just got from Amazon. This is super helpful because it allows you to weigh very small amounts of ingredients at a very high precision. It's like 0.1 grams. That's the level of precision that this specific one has, but it's super helpful for fine-tuning ingredients like salt specifically. That's what I love this for. Spice blends as well. When you're doing recipe development and you don't want to make too big of a spice blend, this is really great because you can weigh out very small amounts. My second recommendation would be a laser thermometer. This one I've had for years and I absolutely love it. It's not only great for classic cooking applications like telling the temperature of caramel or other mixtures on the stove, it's also great for checking the temperature of your baked goods to check if they've cooled enough that you can put them away. I love using this for checking the temperature of my drinks before I drink them. If you make a hot tea with boiling water, I hate burning my mouth and I use this all the time to get things to the perfect temperature. Even if you're just reheating food, this is super helpful to tell that it's fully reheated. And then my last recommendation would be this. It is just a super cheap desktop fan. It's so simple. It's slightly adjustable. It's really one of the cheapest desktop fans that you can get on Amazon. And this has been a lifesaver for cooling down baked goods. Because I run the home bakery on the side of my full-time job, honestly, a lot of my baking happens late at night because it's after I've come home from work, after eating dinner. That just tends to be what usually happens. And so I'm always waiting for things to cool down to put away before I go to bed. And this has drastically sped up the cool down time of my baked goods. So I absolutely love this and I cannot live without this. So I highly recommend it as well. I was originally working on the side of the cake first and honestly it looked horrible. So I just scraped off the excess buttercream with my metal scraper and it's looking a little bit better, but I've decided we need to just focus on the top design and then I'll come back and do what I can to fix the sides. Brittany Lee 7900 asks, where do you find supplies for your home business? So I actually find supplies from a lot of different sources and I basically just try to optimize to get the best deal. I've gotten my equipment from Amazon, Webstront store, and Costco. Things like my stand mixer, food processor, larger baking trays. Amazon is definitely where I get most of my stuff. I would say Webstront store, I've only bought equipment there when I needed commercial size equipment for my commercial kitchen. So like buying my own full size trays, which is of a much larger larger size and not as common to find on Amazon being sold. How do you find out about different markets and events where you can sell? I've been able to find some of the bigger events in my local area on Google. If you just search your city name and then markets, or your city name and then vendor application, for example, like Jersey City Markets, Jersey City vendor application, that will basically return to you all those events where the vendor application is actually on their website, which is typically the case for those larger market events. And then another way that I found events to sell at is by seeing what events other small businesses and similar businesses in my area are going to just on their Instagram. That tends to be a pretty good way to learn about new events, but oftentimes when they're posting that they're attending it, usually that means the vendor application has closed. So I would say if you're just starting out, Google is a great resource. Use Instagram as a way to find events that you want to apply to in the future. And then if you can, talk to other small business owners in the area and ask them about what markets they would recommend attending. How do you manage baking and a full-time job along with YouTube? Honestly, it's a struggle. Like I mentioned earlier, I've just been trying my best to manage it by picking what I think is my top priority and then just committing to that. And looking back at the last 2 years, I definitely have not been able to do everything at once. The best that I've been able to do is just slowly move forwards in my chosen direction. So there are periods of times in the last 2 years where I was making a lot of progress on my home bakery and zero progress on my YouTube. And then there's also times where videos are coming out, but then that means obviously I don't have as much time to work on the home bakery side. So yeah, it is a struggle, and I don't really have a secret to having that all perfectly running at the same time. What helped you to begin posting your journey? So before I started my home bakery, I was already posting shorts for a while, and I was focusing on doing shorts at that time because I had seen a few other YouTube videos which were saying that shorts was the fastest way to grow. But even after posting shorts consistently for a whole year, my views had basically plateaued on YouTube, and I had tried posting a long form video before and that just did not take off. That was like 100 views, nothing more. So at that time, I kind of had the understanding that posting another long form video was not gonna do anything for my channel, and I knew that it might not be worth the time investment because nobody's gonna watch it based on my previous track record. So the only reason why I actually made that video, putting in all the time and hours to edit it and post it while I had already started my home bakery, was because I have a nephew, and at that time I knew this was a start to a very long journey. I knew that in my lifetime I definitely want to open up a brick and mortar cafe. So I kind of knew in my head that having a video series documenting my journey would be something I would actually want to show my nephew when he grows up a bit, to show him this is what it's like to start your own thing, start from zero and pursue your dreams. So that was a primary thing that drove me to actually start documenting my journey. And for the first few months, I was right. It didn't get like any views. I'd completely plateaued, nothing was happening. So I just kind of accepted that and moved on. And then a couple months later, for some reason, it started getting more views. And now it's my most viewed video with over 200,000 views now, which is crazy. But yeah, that's the story. SBSKTH asks, what's the hardest thing about running a home bakery? I think personally for me, the hardest part is the pressure for everything you bake to come out perfect. That's the reality of this type of business. You actually have to make by hand the products that you're selling. And it honestly does give me a lot of anxiety that there's no room for mistakes. I feel like my schedules are pretty much always tight, which means every time I bake, there's this scary feeling of if this bake doesn't go perfectly, I'm gonna have to remake it. And I really don't have time to remake it. But of course, the product I'm selling is what I'm baking. So it doesn't matter if you don't have time to remake it. You gotta remake it. It's gotta be perfect. And that really does make those weeks when I'm baking for bake sales much more stressful. So personally, I have found that to be the hardest part. I do feel like baking mistakes tend to happen less with more practice on those recipes, but sometimes it's not about how much practice you've had. Sometimes it's like you can just genuinely accidentally forget an ingredient. Maybe the recipe's not scaled correctly. Maybe you just accidentally pull out the brownies a little bit underbaked this time. Even this time with the Genoise sponge cake, I've made it at least 3 or 4 times before and I've never messed it up. But then this time, even though I gave it a couple extra folds, somehow the batter was a little bit undermixed, which caused a bit of like a crepe kind of layer to form on the bottom, which is not very nice. What's the hardest thing about managing a home bakery alongside YouTube and your full-time job besides the obvious time timing. For me, the hardest part about managing those three things, aside from just juggling the time, would definitely be my tendency to always want to do everything. When I'm super busy prepping for a bake sale, for an event, I just can't help but always try to plan the next thing. I have so many ideas of what I want to do and also overestimate what I can do. My brain very much works in the manner of identifying what I want to do very well, but not easily coming to terms with the fact that everything I want to do is not actually realistic. And as a result, I often feel like I'm letting myself down / feeling like I'm not doing enough. So I'm still working on trying to have more realistic expectations for myself. But yeah, that's what I would say is the hardest part for me. Do you think you'll be a full-time YouTuber / baker in the future? That's the dream. You know, the crazy part is 2 years ago when I was just making shorts, not really getting any traction and just starting my home bakery, I thought that was some sort of wild, impossible dream. At that time, there's really no proof that I could actually get there. But after just 2 years of taking it one step at a time, having actually run my home bakery and growing my YouTube channel, I feel like my life has changed so much and I think I could get there someday. It's just like making a cake, one step at a time, and you can bring a vision to life. And there we go. This is my attempt at cake painting for today. This is a cake for us and the community we're building together. So let's take a moment to celebrate how far we've come and our dreams for the future. Okay, let's put it right here. Oh, we have 5 seconds. Okay. What's one dream that you're quietly working on? Let me know in the comments so I can cheer you on. All right, let's give it a try. Whoa. Ooh, smells kind of good. Smells lemony. Whoa. Pretty good. It's a solid citrus cake, not too sweet, just the way I like it. It's also quite mellow. It's not super sour either. It's a very lemon butter kind of flavor profile. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. Let me know down below if you have any questions you want me to answer in the next Q&A. Stay inspired and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!